Hey everybody, Ryan here with Ray's Latest. Today we're going to talk about a few new additions that I could possibly see be happening to the team, as well as some maybe possible landing spots for Brandon Lau, either this offseason or close to the trade deadline of this upcoming season. So we're just going to get straight into the whole Brandon Lau thing. I've seen a lot of reports kind of leading him more towards the Athletics and towards the Pirates as possible landing destinations because those are kind of two teams that I've kind of kept my eye out on in this free agency period who kind of really need a pick me up at second base, and they've kind of been they've just been missing a player at second base for quite some time now, especially the Pirates. And what's kind of funny to think about is that Brandon Lau hit 11 more home runs than the next closest person on the Pirates last season, and he only hit 31. So if you're playing at PNC Park, which kind of has the shorter-ish porch in right field, and you're a lefty, you should be hitting a lot of homers. And so I feel like that would be kind of a decent fit for him in Pittsburgh if we did decide to trade him. And the Athletics are kind of the same way. I mean, they're playing at a minor league ballpark, so the ball flies there a lot more. And they have the young core pieces in Kurtz and a lot of other guys that they have over there. And it's interesting to see kind of how they're going to spend this offseason because they have the young core that they need. And it's just a matter of fact to kind of plugging and playing and getting in other guys to kind of fill these voids that they've been having over the last couple of years. And I think that Lau could be a guy that they would be definitely searching for in the trade market. And I think they have well than enough money to afford him. The Pirates, on the other hand, I don't think that they would be open to kind of spending that money to re-sign him for what he's probably going to be. His price tag is going to be a little too much for them, in my opinion, especially for at that time he becomes a free agent. He'll be a 33-year-old infielder with really bad defensive stats. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's, do you trade the defense for the bat, and do you kind of pay him a little more than you're used to paying players to kind of see if he could jumpstart that offense from time to time? But I kind of could more see him going to Oakland, especially from a haul perspective back towards us in Tampa. I just don't think that the Pirates farm system is kind of stacked as it used to be with all the with all these guys that just seemingly turned into amazing starting pitchers, and we just continuously over and over fleeced the Pirates organization for players until they just kind of outgrew us being able to pay them. And I just don't see that anymore in their farm system. So I would be kind of curious to see if they could even put something together that would be worth our time and worth our money and investment in those players. But I do think the Athletics at the end of the day do have a little bit better of a prospect haul that we could get for Lau, because I truly do believe at the end of his contract when it's up, I don't think that he'll be a Tampa Bay Ray, and I just solely say that because I just can't see Neander vying enough money to pay a 34-year-old infielder. And he's never paid anybody that other than Wander Franco. But he was 20 years old at the time. He might have been 19 at the time. Regardless, that's a 14, 15-year age gap in players, and you still only paid him $18 million a year. So that's kind of one of those things where it's like, I just don't see it. And I think that's kind of where they were at with the whole Fairbanks situation. So I just don't see an extension for Lau coming after the end of the season. So I would definitely like to see him sent somewhere unless we were in an extremely great situation to make a postseason run, which I do believe with our current offense that we have now and with especially our infield, with our Ronda, Caminero, Lau, and Carson Williams / Taylor Walls. With Mangum and Simpson in there too, I see this being a really good offense. And if we're making a postseason run, I really wouldn't want to give away the key piece to that offense and the leader, the veteran in the locker room. So I know it's a business at the end of the day, but I just don't think I would rather take the hit making a postseason run with him. But kind of another person that I've seen as a potential target of ours is Lars Nootbaar. And yes, he had an extremely poor year this year, but he also had a degenerative disorder in his ankles, or his heels rather, of his feet, where he had to have surgery on both heels to kind of recover that and kind of repair that. So you kind of he's used to having a really good on base percentage and getting on base at a high rate. And you've kind of seen that over the past couple years beforehand. And it's just, he kind of fallen off this past season. But he's only owed $2.95 million dollars this season. And then he's set to make 5.7, and then he becomes a free agent in 2027. So that could be a potential guy, and he was kind of shopped around at the deadline last season, but with the injury and everything, they're hoping he's going to be an opening day return, but they're not really sure. So I think with that looming and with coming off the injury and the surgeries with the down year all mixed in there, it's a little interesting, but I do think that that can allow you to get him for a little bit cheaper than what you would be able to get him for afterwards. And would the Rays be willing to give him a contract extension after the 2027 season? I don't know. But I think that all kind of just boils down to how he would perform if he was in the situation. And I do think that from kind of our outfield perspective, he kind of fits right into the mold that we have. And I wouldn't be opposed to kind of adding him into that role. And he's more than proved himself the past few years beforehand, having WRC pluses well above average every single year, other than last season. But I'm going to attest that to the injuries, and I think that having two disformed heels that you need surgery on is more than enough to kind of hinder a player from a hitting perspective and a running and on base perspective. So I'll give him some slack for this past season, but at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things. How does he kind of return, and how does he kind of bounce back from that? And if there is any letdowns or anything like that, which also kind of leads me into Mike Yastrzemski, which I've seen a lot of kind of things pointing him towards being the perfect fit for a Tampa Bay Ray. And I kind of dug into it, and it makes a lot of sense because he was 13th in the AL last year in OPS. He had 18 homers in 135 games. As he's averaged 18 homers a year since 2021 with a 741 OPS in 135 games. And he's around a 3 WAR every single season since 2021. And that's one of those guys where it's like, he's just consistent. He shows up every day. He comes to the ballpark. All he wants to do is play baseball, and he's going to do it at a very above average level. He's not going to be an elite, crazy all-star, but he's going to produce, and he's going to be consistent. And I feel like that's exactly what we need in our outfield room, is just consistency. Because you see this the totem pole and the swindle of just up and down and up and down and up and down of, oh, Josh Lowe's hitting 400 this week. Wonder where that came from. And then the next week, he's hitting .085, and it's just kind of goes back to 250 and then down to 100. And then, oh, he hit 380 this week. And it's just, I get it. It's baseball. I played until I was 24. I completely understand that it is a very fluctuating game. I understand. But consistency in our outfield is something that we have lacked for a very long time with the bat. And I think that a guy like Yastrzemski would be a perfect fit for us. And he is not expensive, and you can get him for very cheap. And I think that that's somebody who we could probably get. And I would be really curious to see how he would fit in a lineup like ours. But I do just think, like I said, it's just a consistency piece that we've been missing forever. And he shows up to the ballpark every single day. Just all he wants to do is play baseball, and he's really consistent and a really above average at what he does. And I couldn't not support that, if I'm being completely honest with you. So I think Nootbaar, I think Yastrzemski, I think those could be two viable options for us to pick up in the outfield in this free agency kind of offseason period. And I'm curious to see kind of how Brandon Lau kind of gets shaped around and see if he's shopped out to any markets early in the offseason or if that's going to kind of lead into more towards the trade deadline of this year and the All Star break. So, you guys let me know what you think, and you guys have a great one.